Hey everybody, I'm getting ready to marinate some sirloin tip steak so that we can have it ready to eat tomorrow. The reason for that is it's a very kind of tough piece of meat. So the longer we can marinate that, the more tender it should be tomorrow. So it's going to marinate overnight. I'm going to put it in a Ziploc bag when I'm done with making the marinade here. And then in the morning, I'll take it, I'll shake it up, I'll squish it, make sure everything's getting really good and marinated. And then when I come home during the middle of the day, I'll switch it one more time before we cook it. So I'm going to do a simple thing. And I'm just going to mix everything together in one cup because it should all fit. So I started with a quarter cup of soy sauce. Now, if you are gluten-free, you can get gluten-free soy sauce. You don't have to use the regular stuff. If you are doing keto, if you are diabetic, if you want to leave out the tablespoon of brown sugar, please do. You certainly can do that, and you really won't miss out on much of anything flavor-wise, I don't think. We really like Worcestershire sauce, and really if you're doing any of the keto or the carnivore diet, if you're diabetic, this has a whopping 1 carb per teaspoon in it. 1 gram of carbs, not that much. And so I'm just going to go ahead and feel free to do this. Of course, as you saw, I already put my brown sugar in, so this is definitely not a keto or a carnivore marinade. Although in the scheme of things, there's not going to be that much. It's still enough that it would throw things off if you're counting all that stuff. And the recipe calls for 1 tablespoon, but we really do like Worcestershire sauce, so I added 2 and made a mess doing so. And then it calls for a half a teaspoon of oregano, and calls for a full teaspoon of black pepper, but I'm only going to do half a teaspoon. In our world, we don't like black pepper quite that much, so I'm going to cut that down a bit. I am going to add in the full half teaspoon of paprika as soon as I get it open, because I didn't realize it wasn't already. Good thing we have knives here to help us out. Sealed for safety, and they're not kidding sometimes trying to get these open, in my opinion. So get that going. So half teaspoon of smoked paprika, and I'm gonna go ahead and do just a tad bit more of that. And then it calls for 2 cloves of garlic. And again, I could do my own, but I've gotten really spoiled with this handy dandy jar of minced. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this one already. So again, 1 of these teaspoons is equal to 1 to 2 cloves of garlic. But because we do like garlic, I'm going to go ahead and do 2. And garlic is healthy for us anyhow. Now, because that garlic already has that spoon wet and not usable for anything else, might as well just stir it all together. Smells quite yummy. And it doesn't really look like a lot. I'm hoping it will be plenty for these 2 pieces of sirloin tip steak that I have. Yes, I promise my hands are clean. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pour half of this in now. Roughly. I'm going to slide this other piece in on top of it. Pour the rest of this in here. As I pour some over the edge of the bag. That was handy. You know, if you're not in the kitchen making a mess, maybe you're not really cooking. Because that's how it is in my world. Seldom do I make it out unscathed, as they say. Now I do want to make sure that this seal is good and tight, because I am going to take and just kind of massage this around, making sure it's really getting into all of my meat. And then I am just going to lay it in the fridge flat, and like I said, then in the morning when I get up, I'm going to make sure that I give it a good massage again, working in between the 2 pieces, and flip it to the other side. And then I'll do that one more time tomorrow afternoon between my adventures and before we cook this, so that hopefully the flavor is really, really good and all this works together to break down some of these tendons in this tougher meat, so that by the time we cook it and add some rice to go with it tomorrow night, it's pretty tender. So there you have it. See you tomorrow. Hi everybody. Okay, we're back. We've marinated the sirloin tip steak for actually 2 days, and it is getting cooked tonight one way or the other, because otherwise I'm going to have to throw it out. So here we go. So while I am waiting for this skillet to get super duper hot, I am gonna get it heating, and I have it on my hottest burner right now. And I'm gonna let this heat up a little bit, and then I'm gonna put in a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of butter, and then we're gonna get it searing. In the meantime, I'm gonna get out the pieces of meat and get them patted dry. Not super duper dry, but we don't want them full of the marinated liquid. So this is what it looks like now. And that Worcestershire sauce for sure definitely made it darken up here. Sorry, I'm having a hard time getting my camera adjusted again tonight. Okay, that's better, cheddar. Okay, so I took it out of the marinade, and I'm just gonna lightly dry this off a bit so that we don't have a whole lot of moisture on it. It'll sear better that way. So our pan is warming up pretty nicely. I already am off kilter, but I already have some rice to go with this tonight. And if it were not almost 9 o'clock at night, and if it hadn't been very, very many late nights run together, I might go ahead and try to make some Brussels sprouts tonight, but I'm not going to get that done. It's as simple as that. So we will call it good, and hopefully about the time my son is done mechanicking on his pickup, we'll be ready to eat before it gets any later here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in, I don't know, a little bit of olive oil. This meat does have a little bit of fat on it, so that will help us some. The pieces of meat that we get sometimes that have absolutely no fat on at all definitely need some help. Now, because this has been in our marinade for the last 2 days, there's really not another thing that I should be adding to this season-wise. We shouldn't need anything else at all. And I'm hoping this is going to fit in here okay. I have the biggest skillet out that I have, so we'll see. So the recipe says to sear this on very high heat for 3 to 4 minutes. And if you're a person who likes their meat well done, that's probably the case. Their disclaimer is, depending upon how thick your meat is, but even if these were thicker than they are, which they're roughly maybe about a ½ inch thick, even at that, if they were maybe like that, then maybe I would. But we honestly prefer our meat to be rare to medium rare. So I'm only going to do 2 minutes at a time. And then it's supposed to sit and rest for 5 to 10 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll pull this out. I'm going to put it on a platter and let it rest. And then we're going to cut it pretty thinly against the grain. And that's just because this is a more tough piece of meat. And so by doing all of that, the marinating and then slicing it thin and slicing it that way, then it should be pretty tender and pretty good to eat. So this is not like your normal ribeye. You're not just going to plop it down on a plate and call it good. We'll take a peek here in a second and see if we think that that's enough or not. And I'm going to call it yes because it's already pretty brown on that side there. And definitely there. So that's a poppin' tonight. Alright. I'm going to run and go grab us a platter. And that way I'll be ready when we take it off here in 2 minutes. And then we're going to leave it on the platter. I'm going to tent it with a piece of tin foil. I'm not going to wrap it tight. I'm just going to put the tin foil lightly over it and let it just sit and rest for 5 to 10 minutes. And then we'll come back and slice it up and see what we think. I don't save all of my tin foil, but if I have nice big pieces that I've used on something else that are still in good shape, to me, I might as well just save it because this is the perfect thing. I can easily tent this meat with this tin foil and then wash it, let it dry, and reuse it again the next time I need to do some tenting. Tenting or resting, whatever you want to call it. And I did go ahead and turn my burner off just a second ago because with our cast iron skillet and the metal part of the stove, it still has plenty of heat. It's doing fine. Alright, I'm gonna pull this off. Pull this off. Get that off the burner so it's not continuing to cook. And like I said, I'm not wrapping this tight. I am merely tenting it. And not a weatherproof tent. Alright, I'm going to set our timer for 10 minutes. And we'll come back and we'll slice it up, see what we think. As my friend Tara would say, thumbnail.